In the ancient land of Thebes, a kingdom surrounded by fertile valleys and towering mountains, a tragic prophecy was set in motion. The city, with its towering walls and bustling markets, was a place of splendor and mystery, where the god's presence was felt in every corner. King Laius and Queen Jocasta ruled Thebes, their palace a grand structure of marble and gold, overlooking the city from a hilltop. Laius and Jocasta, despite their power and wealth, were haunted by a curse that had been prophesied by the Oracle of Delphi. The prophecy foretold that their son would one day kill his father and marry his mother, bringing ruin upon their house. Desperate to avoid this fate, Laius and Jocasta devised a cruel plan. When their son was born, Laius ordered a servant to take the infant to Mount Cithaeron and leave him to die, his ankles pinned together to prevent his escape. The servant, however, could not bring himself to abandon the child to such a fate. Instead, he gave the baby to a shepherd, who then took him to Corinth, a neighboring city. There, the baby was adopted by King Polybus and Queen Merope, who named him Oedipus, meaning swollen foot, in reference to the injury inflicted by Laius. Oedipus grew up in Corinth, unaware of his true parentage. The city, with its wide streets and bustling ports, was a place of learning and culture. The palace of Polybus was filled with scholars, warriors, and artists, and Oedipus received the finest education. He was a strong and intelligent young man, loved by his parents and admired by all who knew him. Despite his privileged upbringing, Oedipus was troubled by whispers and rumors about his origins. One day, at a feast, a drunken guest taunted him, claiming he was not the true son of Polybus and Merope. Disturbed by these accusations, Oedipus sought the truth from the Oracle of Delphi. The oracle, in her cryptic manner, did not reveal his parentage, but instead repeated the prophecy. He would kill his father and marry his mother. Horrified, Oedipus vowed never to return to Corinth, believing that by doing so, he could avoid the prophecy. He set out on a journey, determined to change his fate. As Oedipus traveled, he reached a narrow crossroads where three roads met, near the shadowy slopes of Mount Cithaeron. The landscape was rugged and wild, with dense forests and rocky terrain. There, he encountered a chariot driven by an older man and his servants. A quarrel broke out over the right of way, and in a fit of rage, Oedipus killed the man and his attendants, unaware that he had just fulfilled part of the prophecy by killing his father, King Laius. Shaken by the violent encounter, Oedipus continued his journey until he arrived at the city of Thebes. The city was in turmoil, plagued by a monstrous sphinx that terrorized the inhabitants. The sphinx, a creature with the body of a lion, the wings of an eagle, and the head of a woman, posed a riddle to all who approached. If they failed to answer correctly, she devoured them. Thebes was desperate for a hero to save them from the Sphinx's tyranny. Oedipus, hearing of the city's plight, decided to face the beast. The Sphinx's perch was on a rocky outcrop overlooking the city, a place of desolation and fear. The approach to her lair was littered with the bones of her victims. As Oedipus stood before the Sphinx, she posed her riddle. What walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs at noon, and 3 legs in the evening? Oedipus thought carefully and answered, man. As an infant, he crawls on all 4s. As an adult, he walks on 2 legs, and in old age, he uses a cane. The Sphinx, defeated and enraged, threw herself from the cliff, shattering on the rocks below. The people of Thebes rejoiced, hailing Oedipus as their savior. In gratitude, they offered him the throne of Thebes and the hand of the widowed Queen Jocasta in marriage. Oedipus accepted, unknowingly sealing the second part of the prophecy. Under Oedipus's rule, Thebes flourished. He was a wise and just king, beloved by his people. The palace, now his home, was a place of harmony and prosperity, filled with the sounds of laughter and music. He and Jocasta had 4 children, 2 sons, Polynices and Eudicles, and 2 daughters, Antigone and Ismene. The royal family lived in apparent bliss, unaware of the dark fate that hung over them. Years passed, and Oedipus's reputation as a great king grew. However, the peace was shattered when a terrible plague struck Thebes. The fields lay barren, the rivers dried up, and the people suffered from disease and starvation. Desperate for a solution, Oedipus sent his brother-in-law Creon to the Oracle of Delphi to seek guidance. Creon returned with a dire message. The plague was a punishment for harboring the murderer of King Laius. The only way to lift the curse was to find and punish the killer. Determined to save his people, Oedipus launched an investigation to find Laius's murderer. He called upon the blind prophet Tiresias, who was known for his wisdom and connection to the gods. Tiresias arrived at the palace, his sightless eyes covered by a bandage, his presence commanding respect. "Oedipus, you do not wish to hear what I have to say," Tiresias warned. "Speak, old man," Oedipus insisted. "For the sake of Thebes, I must know the truth." Tiresias hesitated, then revealed, "You are the cause of this plague. You are the murderer of Laius." Oedipus was furious, accusing Tiresias of lying and conspiring with Creon to usurp the throne. However, as more evidence came to light, Oedipus began to see the terrible truth. A messenger from Corinth arrived, bringing news of King Polybus's death and revealing that Oedipus was not the biological son of Polybus and Merope. The pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, and a sense of dread filled the palace. Jocasta, upon hearing the revelations, tried to dissuade Oedipus from digging deeper. She begged him to abandon the search for his true origins, but Oedipus persisted. He summoned the old shepherd who had taken him as an infant and learned the final, horrifying truth. He was indeed the son of Laius and Jocasta. Overwhelmed by the realization that he had unwittingly killed his father and married his mother, Oedipus was consumed by grief and guilt. Jocasta, unable to bear the shame and horror, fled to her chambers and took her own life. Oedipus found her lifeless body and, in a fit of madness and despair, took the pins from her dress and blinded himself. Blood streaming from his eyes, he stumbled through the palace, a broken man, crying out for the gods' mercy. Blinded and destitute, Oedipus was exiled from Thebes. He wandered the wilderness, guided by his faithful daughter Antigone, who refused to abandon him. The landscape was harsh and unforgiving, a stark contrast to the once glorious palace he had ruled. Oedipus, now a symbol of human frailty and the inescapable nature of fate, sought redemption and peace. They traveled to Colonus, a quiet village near Athens where Oedipus found sanctuary. The people of Colonus welcomed him, and he spent his final days in contemplation and sorrow, seeking forgiveness for his sins. Oedipus's story did not end with his death. His sons, Polynices and Eudicles, fought for the throne of Thebes, resulting in a brutal civil war. The city that Oedipus had once saved was torn apart by conflict, and his daughters, Antigone and Ismene, faced their own tragic fates. Antigone, in particular, emerged as a symbol of defiance and loyalty. She fought to honor her brother Polynices by ensuring he received a proper burial, defying King Creon's edict. Her courage and determination, even in the face of death, highlighted the enduring strength of the human spirit. The tale of Oedipus serves as a powerful reminder of the complexities of fate and the human condition. It explores themes of destiny, free will, and the consequences of our actions. Oedipus, despite his best efforts to escape his fate, ultimately fulfilled the prophecy that had been set before him.